This is the story of Too Tur Tony. The year started off like any other. Hot weather and dreadful mornings, of getting up and getting ready for work or school, and life was unpleasant. Just like any other Midwestern guy, I was biting at the bit to get cameras up and the stands ready for the season, but more importantly, I was ready for November to come. The sweetest month of the year in the Midwest. Not because of the weather, but because of God's creation and the excitement of harvest. There is no other feeling that compares to harvesting a giant, or any deer for that matter. I finally succeeded in putting up cameras for the year, satisfied as in where they were, and of course it remained slow for the while, but then eventually deer started showing up. Does left and right, little third rackers here and there, but nothing really that would excite a deer hunter of my nature. So I did end up getting impatient, and I decided to move the cameras around. Scrape trees were the prime focus for this time of year, the time where the rut starts to knock on the door and bucks are looking to establish dominance. I went out to 3 of my hunting properties hoping to find exactly that, and I did find some prime scrapes to set a camera nearby. But I want to focus solely on one piece of property. This place is not a whitetail heaven. It's a big piece of land that mainly has 2 ponds and a hayfield, with the ditch being the only piece of timber throughout. Now, I did kill my first my first deer ever 8 years prior, a 146-inch 9-point that was a pure rut buck. But this was not a place to sit anywhere outside of the rut, as that was the only time you'd get lucky. I originally set a camera up here to maybe see a decent buck that was just for the time being bedding down in the area. I hadn't seen a thing that would draw my interest, does, little bucks, that's it. And that evening, I set out to this property to grab my camera and take it off the land. I plan to move to a more important location for me that I was more interested in, with seeing bigger bucks all around. However, something in me told me that I needed to give it one last chance. See what it has, I told myself. Give it a week, and if nothing comes, just take it off. So I moved it out of the brush into the open, where I thought there was a scrape tree in line. I moved the camera in the dark and snuck out of there. Fast forward to the next evening. I was sitting on my girlfriend's couch, scrolling through my phone, TikTok, Facebook, Snapchat, anything to pass the time, while I thought about hunting. I finally got a notification from Grandpa's camera I'd set the night before. Finally, some deer had came to the camera, I thought to myself. I opened the Reveal app and scrolled to refresh the camera, waiting to see what had finally came. And when it refreshed and showed me the pictures, I nearly peed myself. A great big mainframe 9 was 3 yards in front of the camera, licking the hemp scent rope that I had sat the night before. This deer was just a beautiful example of God's art and God's work. My eyes couldn't believe themselves as finally I'd had something interesting come to. I figured this would be the only time he'd hit the camera though, just a cruising buck that I would never see again. But this is where the story starts. The night after he had hit the camera for the first time, he hit the camera again. Consistently, every few days I would get a picture of this deer hitting the scrape and using the ditch to travel to and from the highway. He bedded down on the neighbor's property, and I used this data to determine he might just be there for more than temporarily. All throughout October and early November, this deer was consistently hitting my camera. I knew that it was going to take just a little bit more than just going and sitting here and there. I knew that this was going to need my full attention. I decided to name this deer Too Tur Tony because if you know the guy on TikTok, he's a ladies' man, and you always catch Tony with a bunch of does, even if it's not in November.
That was a one-of-a-kind deer. Nothing ever like that.
Tony wasn't just a deer. I'm sorry. Tony was a Missouri giant.
But then all of a sudden, Tony goes missing. Not a trace of this deer for an entire week. Panic set in. I started to get worried. To keep myself busy, I had other deer on camera that needed my attention just as much as Tony did. There were a few nice deer out on Grandpa's, but nothing exactly like Tony, nothing the caliber or the means of Tony. And I would say that there was a week in my life that I lived and breathed for Too Tur Tony. He was the only thing that would cross my mind when I thought of hunting. Said I wasn't going to get emotional. I got extremely worried and I almost gave up, but just then, he shocked me again. Daylighting on November 3rd at 7:08 a.m., going directly towards my stand. I would have had an opportunity, but I had to attend school. Although I was disappointed I wasn't able to be in the stand that morning, my confidence was back to a high, knowing that this incredible deer was still on all 4 feet. Continuously, at the most inconvenient times, Tony would cross the camera, daylight or middle of the night. This deer knew exactly how to move. Rifle season eventually kicked into gear, and while I was excited to hunt this deer, I was also nervous for the surrounding hunters. I knew that they had no idea what caliber deer went through that ditch line, but I knew they still had a chance to kill him. I hunted and still no signs of Tony, and never saw him. Eventually, on that same piece of property, I got an opportunity at a beautiful 8-pointer hitting the scrape at 75 yards, and of course I took it. So even though I was tagged out, I had hopes of my girlfriend harvesting him, or maybe even getting back on bow hunting after rifle season and pursuing him. I decided to switch it up a little bit and go hunt down the road from this property, a spot that's always prime in the rut. So we went there and gave it a shot. Although it was an exciting morning, nothing was able to hit the ground. I had just gotten home and I took my boots off. Just got home and took my boots off when I got the news. I opened my phone screen to a text from Dylan March saying that he had killed Too Tur Tony.
Most of you guys know the death of Too Tur Tony. I can't do it.
Tony just died. And I'm honestly at a loss for words. It's just a cruel world. Cruel people. Cruel hunters.
It's hard as a hunter. It's hard. Especially just a deer that caliber. Just walking out of your life. It sucks. I was extremely devastated, being that I had hunted ethically and hard for this deer the entire year, and this guy just goes out and kills him out of a truck and then has the kahunas to rub it in my face. The deer was my life and soul at that point. I was always thinking about him, and getting the news that I lost him was good, knowing that I had closure, but also the fact that he was poached and violently killed. It was just so disheartening. It was a sad day. To close this off, I'd just like to give you guys a little advice, and I'd just like to say that it takes more than just here and there. It takes more than just occasional sits and just throwing a stand up. It takes everything in your heart and your passion of the sport to harvest deer like these. I'd like to quote a Bible verse that touches the heart of us hunters around the world. It takes us to Genesis 27:3. Now then, please take your gear, your quiver, and your bow, and go out to the field and hunt some game for me. To some, hunting might be strictly about trophy, but most importantly, an ethical harvest and putting gracious food on your family's table is the most important. I have only a few words left, and they belong to the one we called Too Tur Tony. Oh Tony, although you do not stand today, we take our fame and we take our name and we strive to harvest the game. It was sweet while it lasted, so firm and so sweet, It's unfortunate and unfair that Dylan took you off your feet. Although I will call closure and end this debate, Dylan March will always be a poacher, but will never be a great. Lay your head down and close your eyes now, Tony. It was a really good run, and I bet up in whitetail heaven, you'll be having all the fun. Rest in peace, Tony.